Mercedes W113 Pagoda owners, gentlemen, start your engines. We are looking at Heritage offering for the 113 Pagoda. In this particular case, we're looking at a 280SL. There's a combination on the table of American spec soft pocket and some California coupe pieces for a customer in Dubai. We'll differentiate between all the pieces as we go through the video. I just want to start by saying I've really been looking forward to reshooting this Pagoda presentation from Heritage. The first one was a smash hit, went viral on YouTube. We were quite surprised actually with the incredible response. 3.2 million hits. No, just kidding. It didn't get anything like that. I wouldn't exactly call it viral. We had about 500 views. But the thing that we were most excited about was the incredible response from Pagoda owners worldwide. Within the first week, we started to get some great emails, requests for samples, comments on the video, and requests for quotes. And I think for us, of course, we were most excited about the actual real sales that it generated rapidly. We took orders from Dubai, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Argentina, Brazil, UK, and other EU countries, as well as of course all our business in the US, which is still the largest market for us, of course. Anyway, as I pointed out, I've been looking forward to reshooting this. We're starting with a general overview here, as I did with the first, and then we're going to look at everything in closer detail as we go, and we'll study every aspect. This video is going to be more detailed than the first. The demand is there, people are interested, and people, even if they don't purchase from us, will at least learn more about Pagoda upholstery and the choices and details and differences. As I said in the intro video, we're confident here at Heritage that we make the very best Pagoda trim in the world, second to none. And the purpose of the video is to show that. Ultimately, you guys are the judges, you decide, but we want to capture all the details. And I think you can tell at the end of the presentation that it is very important for us here at Heritage, the details. It's all about those details. I think that really separates us. It's a specialist business, you know. We don't do general restoration. We have no knowledge or real interest in general restoration, to tell you the truth. We're a specialist company. Upholstery is what we care about, and it's what we know about. And the details within classic Mercedes trim for Mercedes was a very important thing, and it's subtle, not always entirely obvious to most people, and in fact I can honestly say it wasn't entirely obvious to us when we first started about 15 years ago with our first effort, which was a 1914 Mercedes for Pebble Beach, which is featured on the webpage if you have any interest in seeing that. Don't expect to do another one of those. It was a one-off. Anyway, it was a great project. We enjoyed it. And then from there, it's been about 15 years we've been doing classic Mercedes trim, and it gets better and better. Recently we've done a lot of R&D, extra work on tweaking some details, and we're extremely pleased with the results, and hopefully you can see that in the video. We're very proud of it. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there. I'm going to do lots of shorter videos this time and edit them in as required. Again, the overview to whet everyone's appetite, and then we'll start to look at everything in detail. I think we'll start as usual. We'll start with the carpet set, so we can clear that off the table, and then we'll start to get into some depth and detail here. So hope you enjoy it. Okay guys, we'll start by looking at the carpet set here, our offering here at Heritage. We're looking at a square weave carpet set in red. As you guys probably noticed, the whole table is full of red. It seems to be the color of the month. There's 2 kits, as I mentioned, but we have a lot of red on the go at the moment. Anyway, we're looking at the square weave carpet set for 280 here. All the carpet sets are similar, all the models, that is. We have all variants: automatic, manual, left-hand drive, right-hand drive, and all the subtle differences between 230, 250 and 280. I'll start off by saying that, as some of you probably already pointed out to yourself, square weave is not original carpet offering for the 280. It was used initially in the 230s, the early 230s, and as the SL range continued on, they switched to a synthetic loop carpet. We have both available. We stock both. We directly import them from Germany, from the only company in the world that reproduces it. Lothar, a good friend of our company, has been great in reproducing, accurately reproducing these carpet sets in Germany, and again, we stock all the raw goods. All of this is cut on our Gerber cutting machine to exact precise CAD files that we can reproduce time and time again. I'm probably going to end up repeating some of the things because they're going to be shown in other videos as well, but hey, it's not a Hollywood production. So here we go. Let's look at the carpets. We'll look at the square weave here. We have all the original colors available. There's a variety shown there. And then we're looking at the what we call German loop carpet, which is the original carpet for the later cars, the 280 SLs. And many of these carpets are two-tone in appearance, the blue, well, all of them actually, except for the black. And here's an example here of the Palomino. And we'll look at a couple of the details here. Firstly, again, all CAD cut. We bind everything on a specialty sewing machine, so the binding is precise and exactly as original for Mercedes. We've also, when I filmed this, we've tooled up and we've dielectrically heat welded this reproduction pad. It's not exactly as original. The original pads were molded. There's a difference between dielectric heat welding and molding. However, we are working and investing in the tooling to produce the original mat exactly as original. Anyway, we include, of course, every single piece of carpet that was original to the car. Some pieces are supplied oversized, not bound, like the big piece for the bulkhead, and others are bound, but we bind exactly as Mercedes did. Also, the piece of carpet on the back of the seat, of course, is included in the set. We're looking at manual and automatic. We're pleased with the way we've come up recently with this way of finishing in here. This was originally a piece of molded rubber plastic PVC from the factory, black, dielectrically heat welded. We are working on the tooling for that, and it will be available quite soon for all the purists that just got to have it exactly as original. So that's coming. However, a lot of customers just want it to look good, as this customer in Europe wanted with this carpet set, so they chose the good-looking square weave carpet. And then we've come up with this great way of finishing here in leather. Trimmed the leather around a frame of Lexan plastic, and we've set that in. There's no top stitch. We could have put a decorative top stitch. We chose to leave it plain. It looks fantastic when it's fitted in the car up against the chrome. Here's another variation of what we do for the carpet set. This is a sewn black PVC. This replicates the original look that the factory had with the molded piece, certainly more than this one. But I think this is a great option here, that finish here. We also include the snaps, the silver snap set. There's six sets, so there's male, female, and everything you need to set those into the front mats. And I think that's about all I can say on the carpet set, so we'll leave it there and move on to something else. See how the leather finisher looks in position around the shifter for the 113s. It turned out really nicely. We could also do it in black if somebody wanted. Okay, we'll continue to look at the panel work here, or what we call our perfectionist panel kit. It varies, as I said, in every model. The 113 here, let's separate the items here. We got this is from the California Coupe, and as you can see, beautifully top stitched. So if it's a panel in the car that can be removed, and this, that has a Mercedes factory substrate that's reusable, and most of them are, there are some exceptions, it's sent to us, and included in the price of the perfectionist panel kit is the service for us to rebuild these panels, to send them back to you, as you see, fully upholstered and ready to fit onto the car. Now, as I said, we got a mix. The hard pocket here is for the California Coupe, as of the rear quarter panels, and of course these are not actually sat onto the door panels. The door panels are not complete for this car yet, but these are supplied, fully installed onto the door panel, as you can see here in this example of a US soft pocket door panel that is complete. So all we need from this panel, for instance, is the aluminum capping off the top, and I'll show you an example of one of those in a few minutes, of original, and the steel frame that goes around the pocket. That's it. The rest we CNC cut. All the panel boards are stocked. We pull them off the shelf. We've got every variation from 230 up to this US spec soft pocket. If it's a panel, it's supplied as a brand new fully upholstered panel. So, for instance, kick panels right there, A-post panels. If it is a piece that we can make, for instance, with this windlace or draft excluder here, we make it complete with all brand new rubber, included the tapered rubber that's used in the A-post on the 113s, and we supply it fully trimmed, ready to go and installed in the car. If it's a cover that needs to be glued onto the car, we supply it pre-cut, pattern shaped, oversized obviously, and everything comes in a separate bag labeled. That's what these labels are here. Some of them are really obvious: convertible top, stowage lid. In North America, we encourage people to send us that stow lid. It's a tricky thing to trim well, and you're certainly welcome to send it from overseas, from Europe and elsewhere, but it is a little more difficult to ship, and so some people choose not to. The other piece of leather you see in the background, there's an oversized piece for the lower lip, I call it, the lower lip cover on the hard top, and again we supply that cut, ready to be installed locally. Of course the hard top is too difficult to ship. So again, covers are supplied, panels if they're new and we can make them, and then all substrates that are sent to us are included in the price that you see for perfectionist panel kit. So the recovering of these B-post rear quarter panels here, this is for the California Coupe, these panels, and as you can see, I'll talk about how we deal with the substrates, and there's a lot of work goes into these before we even get to cover them, and we like to keep details like the original factory numbers intact and so on. Again, we love the details here at Heritage. So let me just give an example of that. Every factory substrate, like these molded pieces from the 280 dash, and I've shown them in a separate video, and you know how scruffy they are when they come in damaged and full of glue and various states of repair, disrepair I should say. We have to deal with all that. Here's an example of panel work as it comes in. This came from a trade customer in the UK. This was not Mercedes, not with Mercedes leather, but with a full thickness burgundy leather that actually looked bloody awful. And the trimmer, sometime in the last 10 years, has just used the whole pot of glue on this unnecessarily. Probably because it's hard to fit into the corners with the full thickness. Anyway, all of this glue, we cannot glue over old glue. Most shops will, but the most general upholstery shops, they have no choice. The time just doesn't allow for it. And they also, it's a specialty solvent that we have. We have a solvent bath. We dip the stuff in to fully clean it. There's a lot of elbow grease as well. It takes a long time. But this is how clean we have to get everything. Look at this. This is a B-post, aluminum B-post for the 230SL. There's the piece for the dash, and you can see how the sun has killed this one. Probably a Californian car. That molded piece gets replaced by us, of course. But we've glass beaded and clean back all of these substrates to be exactly clean and ready to go. You notice that the inside of the glove box hasn't been painted yet, but will be. And you can see how clean the guys have got the metal work so that the glue adheres to that. There's of course a later style B-post waiting for paint. The same applies for the dash pieces. Of course, we need that to get these results. So when they're clean, we're able to get the leather to stick. Of course, Mercedes didn't have that trouble because they had all brand new components. But such is the nature of our business, we have to make sure everything comes back to be perfectly clean. Okay, skived leather for 113 Pagodas. Everything you never needed to know and more. Okay, I had mentioned a couple of times in previous videos how important skived leather is with all classic Mercedes, but particularly the 113s. I would say it's our secret weapon here at Heritage Upholstery, and we are the only company in the world providing all the pieces that were originally skived leather from Mercedes. We provide those pieces in skived leather to match original specifications. It's an extremely important point, okay? There was a reason why Mercedes used skived leather. It's an expensive process for them, especially over the whole run, from the first cars to the last. It's a big decision for them, costly. And in our opinion, a 113 Pagoda cannot be trimmed to a high standard in anything other than skived leather, where it was used by the factory. It isn't used everywhere, but it is used extensively in the 113. I can start by saying that we took original pieces for the 113, and yes, we used a micrometer and we measured the thickness of each piece of leather. Each piece of leather is a different story, a different thickness, and different specifications and reasons for it. We basically reverse engineered that information, and we then skived the leather to the exact specification the Mercedes used on any given part. Now, what's the symptom of when you're not using skived leather? Well, it's simple. You cannot get a piece that's irregular shaped like this, or this flap at the end here, or the binding on sun visors. None of this can be done without wrinkles or without that chubby naugahyde look, that overstuffed look. It is impossible, even for the very best upholsterers anywhere in the world, to pull this irregular shape and for instance, let's look at this one, you know, trying to get this in here and over there without puckers and wrinkles. I showed the rest of the dash in previous video. You can see how beautifully it all turns out with the correct use of skived leather. Here's a great example here. That's a very common spot to have wrinkles from people that are using full thickness leather. And as I said, I want to emphasize this, we are the only company in the world that are supplying a full interior kit for the 113s with all skived leather as original. Very important. Okay, so let me just show you what skived leather is. Full thickness leather tends to be 1.1 to 1.4 millimeters thick, and with the skived leather we have it here at various thicknesses. Approximately reduced by half is 3/4 of a millimeter, 0.77 millimeters, 0.72, 0.51, which is a third essentially, and so on, down to less than half a millimeter. When it gets down to this, it becomes paper thin. Okay, it is crucial this paper thin is crucial for instance, binding on sun visors. Now, yes, I know the Pagodas didn't come with leather sun visors, but if you're going to bind, this thin leather is also used on the 190s, and it's crucial. Most of this tends to come in at approximately half thickness, or as low as a third thickness. So that's what we mean by Skived leather, and it essentially we have a very expensive machine that planes the back of the leather, removes the suede side of the leather, and it's like a giant planing machine that you'd see at a woodwork shop. So it can be set precisely, self-sharpening, high carbon steel blades that cut this off the back, and we can reduce it to paper thin, where the top surface is kept and only the suede off the back is removed. Of course, this is ancient, old school bookbinding, from the medieval times, Bibles and so on. This lots of things were bound in Skived leather. This is ancient technique and technology. I showed this in an earlier one, the window crank covers. Yes, not original, but if you want to cover them with leather, you've got to make sure it's skived, otherwise it looks terrible. Here's some skived down to very thin, ready for the sun visor on another job we're doing. What else on Skived leather? I think that's about it. Hopefully now you understand better its use. I've shown just a few examples of look at this. I mean, imagine trying to get full thickness leather to those standards with no wrinkles. And this is why Mercedes did it. It's as simple as that. You just cannot do it without. But this is a really good piece to look at, to show how Mercedes varied their use of leather and the thickness of leather. As I pointed out, we took a micrometer to every single piece of original leather from the factory to figure out exactly what they were using and why. Now, here's an example of a combination of quite a few different things. We have full thickness leather used in the armrest for the top and the bottom. Of course, Skived leather for the piping, and Skived leather for the front and back of this hard pocket. But the leather at the back is a different thickness to the leather at the front. So they've used two different tolerances, or two different specs there. And there's technical reasons for this. But the main thing is that we take this original chrome, if it's in good condition, we polish it, of course, and or if a new one is sent, we use the new one. We really just don't know how anyone can get that chrome onto full thickness leather. When you try it, you will damage the chrome inevitably. You have to widen it. If you widen it, you're going to crack the chrome. Worse than that, you push down on it and you push the leather out of position. And so Mercedes with this, especially on the back, this is ultra thin leather on the back, and that's how they got that fit. So there's an example of a piece with 4 different size thicknesses, all used in one component. Okay, I thought you guys might be interested to see some original pieces in comparison to our efforts here at Heritage. I showed the windlace earlier. You can see the factory original windlace, draft extruder, as it's called in Europe. Tapered rubber, again, we've replicated that. We have that piece made for us. And you can see that the way that the factory has only have a long tail one side and short the other. We've done the same. There's a reason for that. So we've replicated that exactly. Here's an example of full thickness leather. This one came in from Europe. Full thick, bloody awful leather actually, look at that. Oof. Anyway, that full thickness leather was attempted to wrap over the original that came in and looked bloody awful. And here is the factory original Skived leather. Look how thin it is in comparison. It's probably a third of the 1/3 of the thickness of the full. Notice the black paint here. We'll look at that in a couple of other pieces. Here's an example, that capping piece there. Now, we can see that this has been put on by hand by the factory, like Fritz or Gunther has taken a paintbrush and truly painted this black on here. And we're going to do the same. We figure it's because of the reflection in the glass. That's why they did it. You can see them doing it here as well. And again, it's, you know, they got a bit here. They didn't fuss, of course. They just were working with limited time. You can see the piece at the end and the flap and how we've done that. So we're going to be doing that on these pieces. I mentioned about the blocks, so we've covered that. This is an original Euro spec armrest, and this is common. It does happen that these captive nuts, the Phillips screw strips, they're hard to get off. If you guys maybe have already taken these off your car, you'll know. And then this seizes inside and inevitably cracks the plastic. It's not avoidable. It's just one of those things. We have a way of dealing with this. We have figured out a way to repair this, and just want to point out that we also are tooling up to reproduce this piece. I think there's a pretty good demand for it worldwide. It's going to be a problem for lots of people when that breaks. I wanted to show also the A-post panel, kick panel here. See how Mercedes have trimmed theirs. That, of course, the speaker hole was not original, and you see how we've done ours. The guys here, they initial and date their work with pride. So they when they finish, you can see that we've done all this reinforcing around the gluing as they did with the staples. Again, most shops and our competitors don't go to that trouble. That's to stop it peeling back in years to come. I think you'll see that on the back of the door panel as well. Yep, there we go. So it's all nicely stapled for longevity. And then finally I've got the original soft pocket here, the US spec, to show the look and how we've nailed it there with the folds. See there, see better this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, as I pointed out in the previous video. And we have that replicated here. So there we go. Some more details. I hope you enjoyed it. I mentioned in an earlier video a couple of things. The black felt is now on this. That's on the pillar there. That's stopping squeaking. Little detail, but as you know, I won't say it again. I promise. Anyway, what else? In an earlier video I showed you how everything is packaged and bagged. So I wanted to demonstrate that and how everything is packed here. We have foam wrapped. These are the window cranks. They're wrapped separately so that spikes don't touch each other. Everything is very carefully packed. Just wanted to show that little insert there, and we'll add that into the video. US soft pocket 101, everything you never needed to know about these pockets. Firstly, some interesting things. We see a lot of competitors try to make these and try to get this look and fail. And they fail because of lots of factors. It's firstly, like a lot of things with Mercedes, and a lot of things with, particularly with the upholstery of these classic Mercedes, it looks simple, but it's not. It's done in a very deliberate way, very Germanic. So what do they do to get this look? And this look is a consistent look. It looks haphazard, it isn't. It's quite deliberate. So firstly, there's one taken apart here. First thing, it's Skived leather. So that's one factor that most shops and most competitors don't have access to. So that doesn't help. It's ultra thin Skived leather here on this frame. Now this is the attention to detail that you see in Mercedes that you wouldn't see in other European manufacturers. Let's face it, you'd never see it in a British car. So here we got a, you definitely wouldn't see this in Jaguar. You got this flat pocket here. And in theory, if you pull that elastic away from the door, you can see in there partly. Well, they've taken the trouble to get Skived leather and cover that frame. I mean, the chances of being able to see that at the bottom are pretty slim. But there you go, that's what they've done. And that's what we're going to do. They did it, so we're gonna do it. Very thin, ultra thin Skived leather on that little frame. So there's one detail. The elastic, the size of the elastic, the type of elastic, and how much how big it is when it's cut, and then how big it becomes when it's stretched. Does that make sense? That gives you the tension. That's another factor here, along with the stitch length for the gathering of the pucker in here, the deliberate pleats. And then we can notice something else. There are 4 deliberate tucks. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see them on the one that's taken apart. They've deliberately folded them ever so on each one, just about a centimeter, and they've got that look. That's how they've done it. Again, very thin Skived leather. And so with those factors all coming into play, we at Heritage can replicate this exactly. So we got this one as a reference, and we'll follow this one through to completion. This one's going to be in red, and we'll follow it through. We'll also look at the US spec. Of course, this is only for US spec soft pocket cars. Here's the armrest that came in. Let's notice some features. It's actually full thickness leather. The piping is skived, of course. Here's the piece as it came in. When we take the leather cover off, we end up with this underneath, as I pointed out before. Brand new black stock plastic off the shelf, covered in leather. When we strip down this one, it may not be black, as I pointed out in other videos. But this is original, and of course it's a bit bashed up over time. But that's what's within it. And there's now the other thing to notice, we've got some detailed hand stitching on the back. Look at that. Fritz must have taken hours to do. That's extremely difficult to do, time consuming. But we're gonna replicate that. And of course the glues weren't good in those days, so they had to hand stitch because they had a tendency to pull back. Modern glues would probably hold, but we're going to hand stitch the way that they did. Dana's going to demonstrate the sewing here. As you can see, it's fiddly, time consuming work. So she's punched holes already, and now she's just passing the needle through the punched holes. The punched holes are 1/4 inch apart. So exactly as Mercedes did it, they would have had a vise similar thing to this to hold it, so that you're not fighting all the holding it at the same time. And it is just a time consuming fiddly thing to do. As you can see, Dana's doing a great job. These are tiny little hardboard blocks that are about 5 millimeters, 1/4 inch wide. The factory glued them on the back of the door panel at the point where the door pull is affixed. Now, they did it for a reason. They did it so that when you tighten it up on the door, it doesn't push the door panel in and crease. I tell you, 9.5 cars we see out of 10, if that's at all possible, don't have that detail. So we noted it. We digitized a file to reproduce this. We CAD cut this, made the blocks, and we're going to be installing those on every 113 door panel that we do. The holes will be they're in the panel, and of course we just add these blocks glued onto the back. We have streamlined production on the 113s because we have so many in production currently and more coming down the pipe. So here's an example. This is the 1/8 inch polyfoam and calico that's used within the doors. We've cut this with our CAD cutter machine. The machine is also drawn on the pen line, which the factory did for this piece. The leather gets sewn to that. You can see the shape, so the top of the door, the bottom of the door, and that allows the guys here to be able to pull these off the shelf. There's a car set. Each roll is one door. Actually, a car set, I should say. They grab them from stock, and they can grab the panels that are in stock. Oh yeah, I wanted to point out, I showed it in another video. You can see it. We tape the edge of the door panel as the factory did, so that it fits into the chrome. And again, another rookie mistake made by others. I see it all the time. Again, you get the puckers into the door if you don't do it. So we're on those details, and there we go. Okay guys, we'll look at the US soft pocket door here, which I covered in an earlier video. Covered meaning showed in detail the original from the car, and as you can see, we've nailed this. It's absolutely perfect with the exact amount of pleating that's required, following the factory style. It's not as haphazard as I pointed out. It's quite deliberate. The right amount of elastic, the right tension, and so on. So we've got the right look there. Dead straight lines in the door. The curve at the end of the panel, which is very important, often missed by others. And of course, CNC cut panel board. This is our automotive board that we use. It's high quality, water resistant. It's not exactly, nothing is waterproof of course, but it's certainly better than the original hard board the factory used, or masonite. We like this much better, much longer lasting, and again, CNC cut for accuracy, and all fitted with the original aluminum capping back into position. So they turned out beautifully. We covered the glove box here. Again, this is included when we have a separate, on the 113s, we have a separate price for the dash components. And the reason being is some people stick with the molded pieces, the factory colored, if they're in good condition, or they're covered in vinyl, or for whatever other reason. But most people these days, regardless of how the car comes, are covering them in leather. And so we have a separate line entry for the labor for the dash components. Again, I want to emphasize that the B posts and A posts and all these other components, door, pockets, armrests, and so on, covers, are all included in the Perfectionist panel kit. Okay, so the glove box here is a particularly difficult thing to cover because you're trimming inside a cave there, as you can imagine. That piece got to get glued up, the substrate's got to be glued up, you've got to offer it in without touching the sides. It's a bugger to do. Anyway, it turned out beautifully, as you can see there. And as I mentioned before, covers. Here's 4 pieces that go around the dash vents. Most people don't see these because eventually when the dash goes back together, you don't see much of it, if anything at all. But it was there from Mercedes. We supply them, and they come, as I said, with a label. Some things are obvious if we say kick panels or windlace, draft exterior, but these might not be obvious. So we've leather covers glued to dash at air vents, 4 pieces. There we go. It's in a plastic bag labeled, and helps you or your installer know exactly where it goes. There's a couple of, how can I say, non-original things here that I mentioned in another video. It's a good way of dealing with the door panels when you're doing all leather. These covers for the window cranks are no longer available from Mercedes. So if you're doing all leather, it's nice to cover these in leather. So ultra thin Skived leather on that one. Hand sewn for the pulls, which I've shown. This is how they come from the factory. I showed that in a separate video. The ashtray, of course, we have the padded. It's padded. We've replaced this padding. Again, live thin Skived leather for that. This is for the 1971. This is for the switch in the what's it called? The rear hardtop switch. So there's that. I covered these armrests in a separate video. You can see how beautifully they turned out, and hand stitched and so on. As one of our trade customers pointed out once, looking at this dash stuff, it's like it's like at Heritage we learned how to spray paint leather. Does that make sense? So he made the analogy that it's like this substrates have been painted with leather. It's quite the compliment. As you can see, they're extremely difficult to do. It is hard to believe that this is all leather wrapped. If it's difficult for Mercedes, it's difficult for us. It is only possible with Skived leather. I don't want to emphasize that too much, but there you go. Yeah, I'll say it again. There's the panel all clean with the factory number, and every piece, the way that it's finished, we've replicated from originals from Mercedes pieces. There's the 2 for the across the top of the windscreen where the sun visors go. I mean, look at that, how it fits in there, how the leather's pushed into those pieces. Just absolutely beautiful. I do want to point out something. This is something that not many people notice, but these pieces of hardboard, there's that one there, and I think this one was here, but these pieces are used by the factory to shim these two pieces at the top of the dash. I want to show you that so that you're able, and you or your installer are able to replicate that. We can't put these back on because they're different for every car, and it should be done as it's installed. But if you're having trouble aligning those, that's the reason why. Again, the pillar panels here, look at the beautiful finish on the end here. We haven't, I think on the Dubai order we have yeah, these haven't been done, but there's a black felt that goes on the bottom here. A nice little detail that we've captured and missing from here that will be added. So if Mercedes did something, we copy it. There's the knee pad there. That's a particularly difficult one to get right in here. That if anyone, it's not just, it's the gluing of the piece. It's the gluing of the leather. It's the direction of the leather, the way it's cut. It's where it's glued and where it's not glued, and most importantly, where you start. And trust me, it is not an easy thing to do. It took us a long time to figure out exactly how they did it, trial and error. Some mistakes, stuff gone in the bin, but we've got it down now. It's absolutely perfect. There's the piece for the corner. Look at that. Just like, again, look online and see that piece and other companies. It's bloody awful. Same with this piece here. That ultra thin leather there we flapped it because it gets glued to the body, and there's a fixing screw in there, same here, and you have to have access to that. We padded this with a closed cell foam. The screw holes there, that gets fixed, and then this gets glued down. And it's important that when that gets installed that all this gets pulled out there and in that position there. In this video I will hopefully demonstrate the differences between our product and others, and what makes our seat covers and the finished product the best available anywhere in the world, second to none. That's a pretty brave statement, but I'm gonna make it even more, put even more money on the table, and I'll say that we actually at Heritage are confident that we make Pagoda seat covers to a higher standard of fit and finish than Mercedes themselves did during the production run of the SL. Now that's pretty brave. However, I can tell you that the simple truth of it is that we have products and techniques and equipment that they simply didn't have back then. So it does give us a kind of an unfair advantage. The other great advantage that we have is that we have time to work to a high standard. They did not have the time to work to these high standards at the factory as production work. They had limited time, and it shows in the finished cars. They were mass produced. They didn't have infinite amount of time to spend on the seats and so on, and the standards were just much lower. They expected to see wrinkles and creases in leather in the way that restored cars around the world now just don't. Pleats, the factory would not have hand cut them. They would have tool cut them, but you need at least a 20-ton press to hit those to cut through. My point is that smaller manufacturers and your local upholstery shop would have no other choice than the blade cut. Okay, so I've made that point. I've made the issue about the calico tack strips and so on. Again, we'll look back at the seats because, of course, the proof is right here in front of you. I think you could agree with me that this is absolutely perfect. There's no other way to describe it. I know if it was my car, I'd be extremely pleased to put these in. The high quality leather that we use, I want to emphasize, the most important aspect is that not only does it stay looking great when it's brand new like this, But all these things that I'm showing you come together to make these seats look good in 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, or maybe even 60 years later. Obviously things wear, and that's inevitable, but the high quality leather will ensure many years of enjoyment and comfort. The smell of the leather, of course, is also something that everybody enjoys. So we'll look again at the finished pleats. The pleats are set in here. We have the twin needle stitch. We have the light grey in the back of the holes. We have the pleat at the front joined together for the 280 and sewn into the pipe in here. And this is very important, without any wrinkles. If you sew them in, you can't get them out. Another thing that people don't recognize with Mercedes, classic Mercedes seats, is the look of the seat. We've got the look right here at Heritage. It took a long time, a lot of details that go into this. In fact, there's a specialty machine that we had made for us that does this, allows this cinch sewing here in this section. It's also used at the top of here. And if you notice that it forms this cup, so it's not flat in here, it cups over, dropping the pipe in down below. And that is the hallmark of classic Mercedes seats. And I'll tell you, 9 out of 10 other seats that I see miss this. And you can't really put your finger on why it doesn't look right, at least most people can't. I can at a glance. But that's the reason. This is, you can see it there. There it's that it doesn't have the cinch, it sits lower against the piping. But here it starts to round. You see it? And cup. And so we have a specialty machine that allows this has to be set in the leather prior to sewing. And again, you can see it level here and then cupping at the top in here. So there we go. And again, the backrest has the pleats sewn at the top. Okay, so that's the basic seat construction. Now we'll look at the substrates and a big reason why we get these perfect results. Let's start with the frames. When the frames come into us, they don't look like this. They're always surface rust and deteriorated in many ways. They usually survive well. If there's any repair work needed, we sub that out and the welding gets done and so on. But most of the time, 113 seats frames survive well. We glass bead and paint with a high quality Worth satin finish, a German paint Worth, very good product, and paint the seat frames. If now we don't, there is a factory original color for these frames. If someone just has to have it, they're welcome to go ahead and send us the seat frames fully painted, ready to go. We're not painters, we're trimmers, upholsterers, and we find this to be adequate for most of our customers. You can see it here in the backrest also. So that's how we prepare the seat frames. We cannot and we do not trim over old glue and old crappy looking seat frames. Very important that glue and other things get removed from seats and all the substrates, as I demonstrate in other videos, otherwise we cannot get these perfect results. So now we'll look at our current replacement. As of May 2017, we are using these reproduction seat pads that are made of what people call horsehair. Now it isn't horsehair, it's fibrous materials, mostly coconut matting. There are some natural, it's basically the old socks and dead dogs, they call it. It's just fibrous materials left over from lots of different industries. They put a resin in with it that allows it to be moldable. You can see how Mercedes then added other padding on top and calico pulls and thing. Now I'm just demonstrating here an original seat foam that was rejected by production here as not being suitable. You can see why. It's coming apart. We just simply can't get those results that we want. On the other hand, the pad in this seat frame was in good condition and was able to be reused. But as a service to customers, we paint the back of the foam to kind of seal the old sort of natural smells that sometimes come from the old pads, and that fixes that. However, in a case like this, where they're just too bad, we have the new fibrous replacement pads here, and you can see one. This is, of course, has ready for the American style headrest, and so they are available. Now, I mentioned the date because within the next few months, we at Heritage are tooling up. Here's an example of a tooled molded foam. And we are going to be producing these cushion and backrest foams in molded modern urethane foam, not the horsehair. And we are absolutely confident that the results that we're going to get are going to be even better because it's a much better product than this original horsehair. So here's modern urethane foam. It's a two-part foam. It expands within the mold. It's very expensive to create the tooling for this, and of course the cushion portion of the seat is handed left and right. The backrests are not handed, but there's going to be some substantial investment in these molded pads. Again, we've done it with the headrests already, and we're going to do the same with these two components. We feel you're going to have much more comfort in the seat, and you'll have much longer life. This will eventually break down in the same way that this one. This is the 25-year life foam used in modern car manufacturing with perfect results. So it's comfortable, it fits. They're going to have these made to fit our seat covers like a glove, and the whole combination is going to take us up to an even higher level than we're currently achieving. Case in point, let's look at the headrest. We tooled up. These are our own molded headrest foams. This is the end result. Here's this is a set that we're doing for a customer in Dubai. Here's his original headrest foams. This car was actually sold new in Japan and then ended up in Dubai. Left-hand drive American spec originally. Actually not new in Japan, American spec imported to Japan and ended up in Dubai. Anyway, my point is, here's the original headrest pads, and most other companies have to make use of these pads. They have no other choice. But look at this. It's bloody falling apart. It's rough. It's got the polyfoam from the factory, but look at the bumpy on the side. If you take brand new headrest covers from us or anybody else and you put them onto this headrest foam, which may be a different shape to the other side, there's another problem that comes up. You see that in online photographs. And you're using the old foam that's distorted and disintegrated and shrunk and so on, you're going to end up with a headrest that has, this is common, look in this area here on your car or on restored cars, and this is always puckered in here, meaning the leather here. Now, look at that. It's bloody perfect. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And that's made possible by that. There's the beautiful top stitch that we see here. Look how accurate that is. We see inaccuracies in sewing from the factory. I don't have an example to show you, but I could certainly find one. They weren't always perfect, that's for sure. If Fritz or Gerda started sewing and went off a little bit, you don't think they threw it in the bin. I mean, if it was visible and bad, but you know, we see this now. I don't know if you can see. Hopefully, you can see. Again, absolutely perfect. Again, our sewing department has given time to make it. And if they go off, which they rarely do, but if they do, it goes in the bin. Simple as that. These small details come together and make a difference, and we're very proud of these details that we're pointing out here. This is how we get these wonderful results. Okay, I wanted to refilm the seats now that they are 100% complete. When I filmed the main video that you just saw, they were not 100% complete, and I think we've taken it from 98 to 100%. Little things that we noticed here at Heritage, my production manager pointed out. We've now got these absolutely perfect. They weren't finished on the underside, the panels weren't on the back. You can see how it's beautifully it's finished, all the new paint, all the calico hog ringed in, and let's examine some of the details. The roll here, piping dead straight. beautifully straight pleats, full pleats, and the original style cinch in here at the front for the 280s. And we'll look closer now at the backrest. I want to just do this final shot. Look at this at the top, beautiful. No, this is another common thing competitors we see, this pleat coming up in here forming bumps. Not at Heritage. Look at that, stunning. And let's look at that again, the nice roll here. Whoops, I'll knock that over, let that sit there. There we go. Come on, stay here, bugger. Good. Okay, so let's look at the other one that I have down. We'll just look at the back. Now the panel's on. We have 2 screws to go on the bottom, so it's not fully complete yet, but that's the only final step here. All these chromes have been beautifully repolished, and new carpet, of course, on the new panel board, and beautifully finished. And you can see the top there. We here at Heritage are extremely pleased with these seats, and this is a perfect example of how Pagoda seats should look, and this is really what separates us from the pack. I'm sure you'd all agree that they're perfect, and we're confident that they'll look even better when assembled fully into the car, and can't wait to add those photographs to our web page. So we'll keep you posted as this car completes. Okay, gentlemen, so lots of things separate Heritage from the pack. This is one of them. It's a special twin needle machine here that's set up for exactly 12 millimeters. We had it made specifically for Mercedes pleating, and Sol is going to show us how we do this stitch line here. We have the embossing for the basket we've already done, the holes punched. So the first step is a chalk line on the holes, and then Sol will demonstrate how we do it. Now, I think it's pretty easy to see how difficult this is. It's absolutely impossible for even the best sewers in the world to sew 2 parallel lines exactly 12 millimeters apart consistently. So it's always a telltale sign when you see the cheap upholstery jobs for Mercedes 111s, 113s. You always see this wavy line where a local upholstery shop has tried to do this with 2 passes of a single needle machine. So you can see it's time consuming, but this is how Mercedes did it. This is how we do it here at Heritage. And here's the final result here. We've got these panels. This is in a nice Palomino. You can see how dead straight, perfect that stitch line is. Right, gentlemen, we're going to cut the pleats for the 113 seats with our turbo cutting machine. We'll start up the vacuum. This cut is, the blade is under a lot of pressure. So we help the vacuum so they stay in position by moving cardboard into position so that the maximum vacuum is used. So use a bit of silicone for keeping that blade doing its thing. But as I showed in the other video, you can see how dead straight these are, of course, tracking back through its own cut. I don't think we need to see the rest. I think that demonstrates it, and of course you've seen how the pleats look, dead straight, perfectly accurate, and very important part. Oh, there we go. How's that? Don't try that at home, kids. Okay, everything you ever wanted to know and more about heated seats in classic Mercedes cars. Obviously not original. Heated seats were not offered until well into the 80s by Mercedes, certainly not in the 60s and 70s. However, we have sourced this very well-made German product. It's a carbon fiber. That's it. Carbon fiber element in here. This means it can be cut and adjusted. It gives a good even heat. It doesn't have the continuous wire that other early heated seat technology had. This is the latest, greatest, and stays without breaking. You lose a break in a cheaper seat heater, and you simply don't have a seat heater. You can see it comes with its integral wiring loom, very nicely made. It's all cloth wrapped, and they've even gone to the trouble. Look, I just love the bloody Germans and the way they do things. Look at that, heat shrink in every single terminal on this switch. Great little switch, two-stage heater, low and high. Just a click there. Now, if you don't want to put that in your dash or anywhere else, then certainly another good way to do it, put a little bit of heat shrink around that, bigger piece of course, heat shrink that so it's completely filled, and drop it underneath your seat, discreetly underneath there, so you can reach down and throw on. Now, why would you put heated seats in an open car that you mostly use in the summer? I hear you say. Great question, and I'm happy to answer that. I can tell you that most of our customers will choose this option, and the reason is because it is extremely comfortable in an open car to be nice and toasty warm. Not so much in the hot days when you're driving it during the day, but in the nighttime. So, for instance, you go to the local restaurant, you and the missus, you pull in, it's nice and warm, the sun's going down. You come out, it's not as warm. You flick on the switch, you've got instant heat, comfort. It is a great thing to have, and again, it's within the seat. Nobody sees it. It doesn't spoil the originality of the car. It's just a convenience. And you could say, well, I live in a hot country. I live in Australia. Or I live wherever. I can tell you that this customer, this half of the seat, I think it's this one. This customer lives in Dubai. Now, it doesn't get much hotter. However, I can tell you that here in Palm Springs, we live in a desert too that gets extremely hot. We're talking up to 50 degrees Celsius in summertime. So we know all about deserts and we know all about heat. But even in a desert, it gets cold at night. So when I ask the customer from Dubai, did he want heated seats? He didn't laugh the way that some people might. Because he gets it. It's bloody cold at night. It can be, that's for sure, especially in the winter. So he chose to go with the heated seats. I recommend them. You get one decision to put them in. It's at the beginning. You can't add them later. The seat can't come apart to add them in. So I would, even if you never use them, for the amount of money that we charge, we install them at no charge. You just buy the seat heaters. At least you have them there. If you choose not to use them, well, then that's up to you. But I'll tell you what, those people that choose to go this option will have no regrets. That's my opinion. The people that do not choose to go with this will remember one day when they're driving their Pagoda and the missus is complaining because it's freezing and she wants the heat on and the top up. They'll be saying that's a fast-talking Welshman was right. Okay, gentlemen, we're looking at Heritage Upholstery's offering for the 113 Pagoda sun visors. Firstly, we'll look at an original set of sun visors. You guys know what they look like. They're on your car. Always, anywhere in the world, even where there isn't much sun, these foams disintegrate inside. This is dielectrically heat welded, so the machine that we have for the HF welding is the way that this PVC is finished on the edges. That's how it was done from the factory. These are available, I believe, from Classic Center, Mercedes Classic Center. And they were always this off-white color, regardless of the interior. So this is a stock sun visor. If you're going to have us do your sun visors in leather, we ask that you do not send us these this hardware. We don't require you to send that. All we're looking for is the frame within. So let's take a look within one of these and see what we got. There's the PVC. You can see there's the join of the PVC as we showed you with the HF machine when we showed you the door panel. We have the machine to do it. We do have an intention here at Heritage to reproduce these. The price point, they're quite expensive as they are from Mercedes currently. Now within there you can see the foams. There's the frame, that's the steel frame inside, which is what we're after, and they use an expandable PVC foam here, and you can see that it dimples. And the problem with it is that in the heat, and especially in hot countries, our customer in Dubai is just completely like dust. In California here, you can see how it just turns to dust. These are actually in not bad shape. They're usually much worse. But you can feel your own. They're always, you can feel that they're disintegrated, and then they start to wrinkle, and especially in the heat. So that's how the factory did it with this foam. It was put within, and when the heat process happens, this foam expands and pushes out against this. So when they're new, they're nice and tight and they look good. Great. So there we are. Most originals are in poor condition if you're doing a full restoration. So you have a decision to make. You either buy reproductions, or you can choose, as one of our big European trade customers picked here, their choice was to do the sun visors in matching leather. Arguably a much nicer look, not original, but certainly a more luxurious look within the car. So this is what we've done here at Heritage. We have within this frame, within this sun visor, we have just used the metal frames. That's it, nothing else. We've rebuilt everything else. Not going to tell you what's within. I can tell you it's all new product. There's several different things within here that make up this, including some specialty foam and so on. We are also put in the brand new mirror. We have the mirror here, the same one that we use for the 190s. I have a frame that the Gerber machine cut, so we get a nice accurate. And there we have a very stock looking passenger vanity mirror that we can put in. And again, crucial is the very thin, paper thin binding to make a nice finish around here. I'm sure you guys would agree that that looks great. We have a very fine specialty sewing machine with fine thread and even finer needle than we use typically, and that's how this is sewn at the top, and you can see how nice that looks. So you know it's not coming apart. These will last much longer than the originals. Now, what else? I can tell you that the design, for want of a better word, was inspired by original classic Mercedes, not original for 113s, but this is the way that 111, 112 cabrios were finished. This is the way that 190 SLs were finished. Also the W128 cabrios, we did that. That's how these are done. And the 300 Roadsters also done this way. So it's not like we're pulling this out of thin air. This was inspired by classic Mercedes technique. And you can see that we're doing a top stitch. There's a stitch under there, folding over, and then dropping one, what we call dropping one in the gutter. But you can see how beautifully our sewers here at Heritage have nailed that, just perfect. Very difficult to do because the sew machine is sewing right through the substrate underneath and right through the other side. Raw edge this side, so the side you see, the good side, is finished nicely. And that's how Mercedes did it with the other classics.